Good morning, everyone. In the last session, we started developing one application. So the application is, I want to develop one car-based application. And in the car class, I'm taking a drive method. And there is another class called engine. If I want to start the car, then I need to if I want to drive the car, then I need to start the engine. So car class wants to talk to engine class. That means one Java class wants to talk to another Java class. How many ways one Java class can talk to another Java class? There are two ways available. One is by using inheritance, and the second one is by using composition. Inheritance means extending the properties from one class to another class. If you go for inheritance, you can extend at most only one class. Now, if car is extending the properties from the engine, car class cannot extend the properties from any other class in the future. The reason, Java does not support for multiple inheritance. So here going for inheritance is not recommended because you can extend the properties from only one class and the classes are becoming tightly coupled. Hence, so if you want to access one class method in the another class, going for the inheritance is the bad practice. Okay, it is not recommended. Apart from this inheritance, what is the other option we have? We are having a composition. What is the meaning of composition? Composition means creating the object and calling the method. Okay, fine. We are able to create the object and we are calling the methods. So what is the problem with this approach? Here also classes are becoming tightly coupled. Here also classes are becoming tightly coupled. Now, sir, why tightly coupled here? What is the problem? We are able to create the object by using new operator. We are able to call the methods, right? Thing is, so today here car class is talking to only one class called engine. We are able to create the object. But let's think about real-time projects. If I want to implement one user registration functionality, so user controller will be available, which will receive the request from the UI. Then that controller will call user service layer method, user service nothing but which will contain business logic. In this service, it has to talk to one class called PAN card verification to verify that PAN card is valid or not. And it has to talk to passport verification to verify passport number is valid or not. Talk to Aadhaar card verification, Aadhaar card is valid or not. Then password utils to encrypt the user password to store into database, then store the record into database, then send the email. So there are 6 different functionalities are involved in the user service. Now here, can I go for inheritance? Can user service extend the properties from all the 6 classes to call the methods? Java does not support for multiple inheritance. Then what is the option we have? We have only composition option. So now what we need to do to implement this requirement is we need to create the object for all these 6 classes. For all these 6 classes, we have to create the object in the user service. So here, if you create the objects, then classes will become tightly coupled. And you need to know the object creation process for each and every class. So that is that problem. Now tell me, without inheritance, without composition, can we access one Java class method in another Java class Come on, come on. Without inheritance and without composition, can we access one Java class method in another Java class? Guys, no, normally it is not possible. We need to go for IOC container. Okay, now we need to go for IOC container. By using Spring Core module, we can develop the classes with loosely coupling. Spring Core is base module in the Spring framework. All the other modules of the Spring are developed on top of Spring Core module only. In the Spring framework, there are several modules available. All the modules are developed on top of Spring Core module only. Spring Core providing fundamental concepts of Spring framework, IOC container, and dependency injection. Spring Core is all about managing dependencies among the classes, like creating the objects and injecting the objects. So in our application, several classes will be available. In our application, several classes will be available. One class wants to talk to another class will be available. One class, one class method wants to talk to one class method wants to talk to another class method. One class method wants to talk to another class method. We can establish communication between the classes in two ways. We can establish communication between two classes, communication between two classes, communication among the classes in two ways. What are those two ways? As we discussed yesterday, one is inheritance and the second one is composition. If we use inheritance or composition, then classes will be tightly coupled. If we use inheritance or composition, then our classes will become tightly coupled. Our classes will become tightly coupled. Now, instead of we are inheriting the properties or creating the objects, we can use Spring Core module to manage dependencies. Instead of we are creating objects, we can ask Spring Core to manage dependencies among our classes. Instead of we are creating objects, we can ask the Spring Core to manage dependencies among our classes. Okay, now, sir, I will develop my classes. I will create all these classes in my project. Can we ask IOC container to manage the dependencies? Can we ask IOC container to manage the dependencies? Yes. Spring Core will manage dependencies among our classes, but we need to follow some rules while developing the classes. Then only Spring Core module will manage the dependencies. Then only Spring Core module will manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling. Simple example. Can I give simple example, sir? Can anyone attend our Spring Boot microservices course in Ashok IT? Everybody can attend the Spring Boot microservices, or there are some prerequisites to attend the Spring Boot microservices? Can you tell me, guys? So, am I telling that everybody can attend the Spring Boot microservices, or there are some prerequisites to attend the Spring Boot microservices? There are some prerequisites available. There are some prerequisites available to attend these courses, and a payment process is also available to attend this course. So now that means if you want to learn Spring Boot microservices, you need to have these prerequisites. Then only you can attend this course. Similarly, assume that in my application, there are several classes available. Can I give any class to the Spring Core module? Can I ask the Spring Core to manage the dependencies? Can Spring Core manage the dependencies for any type of classes? Can I give any class to the Spring Core? Or I need to follow some rules? I need to have my classes should follow some prerequisites. Then only Spring Core module will manage the dependencies. My classes should follow some rules and regulations. then only Spring Core will manage the dependencies. Then only Spring Core will manage the dependencies. If we want Spring Core module, if we want Spring Core module to manage our dependencies, if we want Spring Core module to manage dependencies among the classes, dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling, then we have to develop our classes by following some best practices, by following some rules or by following some best practices. Then only Spring Core module can manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling. Are you clear with my point? If we want Spring Core module to manage dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling, then we have to develop our classes by following some best practices. So now I have a question. Can I develop the classes without following any rules? And can I ask the Spring Core to manage the dependencies? Can Spring Core manage the dependency for any type of class, or it can manage it cannot manage? It cannot manage. You need to develop your classes by following some best practices. Then only you need to develop your classes by following some best practices. Then only Spring Core module can manage the dependencies among the classes. Are you able to understand? If we want Spring Core module to manage dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling, then we have to develop our classes by following some best practices. Spring Core suggesting the developers to follow Spring Core suggesting developers to follow strategy design pattern to develop classes so that Spring Core can easily manage dependencies among the classes, dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling. Guys, these two statements are very important. If we want Spring Core module to manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling, then we have to develop our classes by following some best practices. So what are those best practices? Who has given those best practices? There is a concept called strategy design pattern. There is a concept called strategy design pattern. Spring Core module suggesting the developers to follow strategy design pattern to develop classes so that Spring Core can easily manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling. Spring Core suggesting the developers to follow strategy design pattern to develop classes so that Spring Core can easily manage the dependencies with loosely coupling. Are you guys able to understand? So when you are going to develop a application with a Spring framework, then you no need to go for inheritance. You no need to go for the object creation directly. You can ask a Spring Core module to manage the dependencies. But the thing is, conditions apply. Spring Core can manage the dependencies for your classes with loosely coupling, but you need to follow some rules and regulations to develop the classes. Then only Spring Core can manage the dependencies. So what are the rules we need to follow to develop our classes? Can you tell me, guys? What are the rules we need to follow to develop our classes so that Spring will manage the dependencies? I want answers. We need to develop our classes by following some rules. So what are the rules available? Strategy design pattern. Who told that we need to follow strategy design pattern? Is it decided by Ashok IT? Or is it decided by James Gosling? No. Who told to follow the strategy design pattern? Is it decided by Ashok IT that every developer should follow strategy design pattern? No. Who told that we need to follow strategy design pattern? Spring core module told that. Hey, Spring developers, if you want IOC container to manage the dependencies, then you need to develop your classes by following strategy design pattern. Then our IOC container can easily manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling. So if you want to achieve loosely coupling, if you want to manage the dependencies by using Spring framework, then you are going to develop the class. You have to develop the classes by using strategy design pattern. Okay, now let us see what is that strategy design pattern. Let us see what is that strategy design pattern. Now let's go here. Strategy design pattern. Strategy design pattern. So do you know design patterns are divided into how many types? GOF, GOF, gang of 4 people. Creational design patterns, structural design patterns, behavioral design patterns, like that there are several design patterns are available. Strategy design pattern comes under which category? Strategy design pattern comes under behavioral design pattern. Okay. Strategy design pattern comes under behavioral design pattern. You see here. In computer programming, the strategy pattern is also known as the policy pattern, is a behavioral software design pattern that enables selecting an algorithm at runtime. Selecting an algorithm at runtime. Instead of implementing a single algorithm directly, code receives runtime instructions as to which in a family of algorithms to use. So what is the meaning of that? Instead of directly writing only one algorithm for your solution, you write several algorithms, then your code will choose one algorithm at runtime. So that means your classes are not going to be tightly coupled. Your classes will not be tightly coupled. Here, your code will have the multiple algorithms. If you want to follow strategy design pattern, then you develop multiple algorithms to use. Then your code will use one algorithm at runtime. That is what the strategy design pattern is telling. Now you see here, let me take one example. Let me take one example. Payment process, we can take an example of payment process. So what is the example for payment process now? Suppose now bill payment. So now you are going for a restaurant, you are going for a restaurant, pay bill. You are going for a restaurant, food dinner you have done in the restaurant. In the restaurant you are doing bill payment. Now here in the restaurant, I will develop one application. There is another class called credit card payment pay. Now, so if I do like this, what is the problem? Now in the restaurant, there is a machine available. Restaurant bill machine is available. Now bill machine is having bill machine, bill collector. Bill collector machine is available. The bill collector machine want to collect the bill from the customers of the restaurant. So now can directly this class talk to credit card payment functionality to collect the payment? If I do like this, what is the problem? If I do like this, what is the problem, guys? The bill collector will collect only using credit card payment. Is it loosely coupled or is it tightly coupled? The functionalities are loosely coupled. The functionalities are tightly coupled. You have to tell me now. Functionalities are loosely coupled or functionalities are tightly coupled? Functionalities are tightly coupled. Tightly coupled. Suppose for example, I don't have a credit card, I have a debit card. I don't have a credit card, I have a debit card. Then can I do the payment? I cannot. I cannot. I don't have a credit card, I want to pay through Google Pay. I want to do the payment through Google Pay, or I want to do the payment through cash. I want to do the payment by using MX. Now, do we have several options to do the payment, or we are tightly coupled? Our bill collector machine is tightly coupled with only credit card application. So tell me, is it recommended to develop the applications like this? Is it recommended to develop the applications like this? No, it is not recommended to develop. It is not recommended to develop the applications like this. So now, instead of going for one solution, always we need to develop multiple solutions. Then we can choose the solution in the runtime. That is strategy design pattern. So if you develop like this, these applications are tightly coupled. Instead of that, what I will do is I will create one class for credit card payment. Credit card payment is available. There we will have a pay method, credit card class available. And here I will have one more class called debit card payment. I will have one more class debit card payment. And I will have one more card which is called MX card payment. MX card. There also pay option. And I will do have UPI payment. And here also pay is available. So can I say that I have multiple solutions to do the payment in the restaurant? Can I say that I have multiple solutions to pay the bill amount in the restaurant? Multiple payments are available, multiple options are available to do the payments. Can I say like this? Can I say like this? MX card means company will provide you some cards for the payments. MX means companies will provide you with more credit balance. Companies will do the payment. Okay. Right. Now here we are having multiple solutions. For all these things, I will create one interface called iPayment. I will create one interface called iPayment. Why I need to create interface, I will tell you that. Now guys, understand here. If I develop my application like this, bill collector is talking to only credit card payment, then the classes will become tightly coupled. Bill collector class is directly talking to credit card payment, then the classes will become tightly coupled. And here there is only one solution. But here in the restaurant, multiple customers will be coming to the restaurant. Multiple customers want to do the payment through multiple ways. Some people will go for credit card. Some people will go for a debit card. Some people will go for MX card. Some people will go for UPI. So it depends upon the customer choice. We have to collect the bill amount. Now here I am having so many options to do the bill payment. Okay. Now here I'm going to develop a bill collector class. I'm going to develop a bill collector class. Now bill collector class is having pay bill method. Now tell me, bill collector should talk to which algorithm to collect the bill amount? Bill collector class should talk to which algorithm to collect the bill amount? Can I directly talk to credit card? Can I talk to debit card? Can I talk to MX card? Can I talk to UPI? Is it fixed? The bill collector should talk to which class? Is it fixed or it is depends upon the customer choice now? Pay bill method should talk to credit card payment, or pay bill should talk to debit card payment, or pay bill should talk to MX card payment, or pay bill should talk to UPI payment. Is it fixed here or it is going to change dynamically? It depends upon the customer choice. It depends upon the customer choice. That means the algorithm is going to change in the runtime or not. Which payment that we need to accept? Is it static or it is dynamic? Is it static or it is dynamic? It is dynamic. That is what the strategy design pattern is telling for you. That is what the strategy design pattern is telling. In computer programming language, in the computer programming, the strategy pattern known as the policy pattern is a behavioral strategy design pattern that enables selecting an algorithm at runtime. Now, can you see here? It is a behavioral software design pattern that enables selecting an algorithm at runtime. Instead of implementing a single algorithm directly, so implementing a single algorithm directly means first approach. Bill collector is directly talking to credit card payment. This is one algorithm. Instead of directly talking to single algorithm, it will enable to choose the algorithm at the runtime based on the requirement. So now when you have multiple options to execute, you have multiple options. In those multiple options, you have to execute one option in the runtime based on some situation. Then you can go for this strategy design pattern. You can go for strategy design pattern. That means everybody is saying like this. In strategy design pattern, a class or its algorithm can be changed at runtime. This type of design pattern comes under behavior pattern. That means the behavior of the bill collector should change dynamically in the runtime. Behavior of the bill collector should change in the runtime. Why the behavior should change? Based on the customer choice, bill collector should talk to credit card or debit card or MX card or UPI payment. Are you guys able to follow me? Are you guys able to follow me? Yes. Now, if you observe, can I directly create a credit card object in the bill collector? Can I directly create the objects for all these classes in the bill collector based on the condition execute one class method? Can I create the objects directly? If I want to execute particular payment based on the customer choice, do I need to create the objects for all the 5 classes? Do I need to create the object for all the 5 classes or not required? Come on, not required. If I create the objects, then what is the use of going for Spring Core? If I create the objects for the 5 classes, then what is the use of going for Spring Core? If I create the objects, then the classes will be tightly coupled, right? The classes will be tightly coupled. Right. Strategy design pattern. Strategy design pattern. It comes under behavioral design pattern. It comes under behavioral design pattern. It comes under behavioral design pattern. It enables our code to choose an algorithm at runtime. It enables our code to choose an algorithm at runtime. When we have multiple algorithms, then we can use this pattern to choose one algorithm at runtime. Now, so the rules that we need to follow in the strategy design pattern, there are some rules available in the strategy design pattern. First one is favor composition over inheritance. Boss, When you want to use one class functionality in the another class functionality, blindly don't go for inheritance. You favor composition over inheritance. That means when your class want to access the methods of the another class, blindly don't go for inheritance, go for composition. That is the first rule available in strategy design pattern. Favor composition over inheritance. Now, second principle, code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Favor composition over inheritance. That is the first principle. That is the first rule is available in the strategy design pattern. The second rule is code to interfaces instead of implementation classes, right? Third principle, code should be open for extension. Code should be open for extension and code should be closed and code should be open for extension and closed for modification. That means I should be able to add the new functionality easily, or I should be able to modify the existing functionality easily. My code should be open for extension and my code should be closed for modification. Code should be open for extension and code should be closed for modifications. Favor composition over inheritance. Code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Code should be open for extension. Code should be closed for modification. These are the rules of strategy design pattern. If you develop your classes by following these rules, then you can choose the algorithm at the runtime and your classes will be loosely coupled. Guys, can you read these points now? What is the strategy design pattern? Can you read these points? What is strategy design pattern? So tomorrow, I want to add one more payment functionality in my application. Yes, I should be able to add it. Or tomorrow, I want to remove the payment for UPI. I don't want to support UPI payment. Or I should be able to add another payment process. Code should be open for extension means we should be able to add the new algorithm to execute our application. We should be able to add the new algorithm to execute our application. Code should be closed for modification means tomorrow I want to remove the credit card payment. Yes, if I remove the credit card payment option, my application should not be affected. Or if I add one more payment process, my application should not be affected. Code should be open for extension. Open for extension means we should be able to add the new functionality in the existing project without affecting the exit. We should be able to add the new functionality without affecting the existing functionality. That is called code should be open for extension. Closed for modification means if I change some functionality also, the remaining functionalities should not be affected. I want to remove credit card payment option in my restaurant. Then still people should be able to do the payment using debit card, MX card, UPI payment. Are you guys able to understand what is open for extension, closed for modification? Are you guys able to understand what is open for extension, closed for modification? Yes. Second one is code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. So what it is telling is, if your bill collector class is directly talking to credit card payment class, that is a implementation class where the logic is available. My bill collector can talk to only credit card payment. So instead of that, what they are telling, code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. So here, if my bill collector is talking to credit card payment, debit card payment, MX card payment, UPI payment, then my classes will be tightly coupled. My classes will be tightly coupled. So what it is telling, code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. What is the meaning is, this is a wrong approach. You understand why this is a wrong approach? Guys, you understand why this approach is wrong? Why this approach is wrong? Is this recommended approach or it is not recommended approach? Bill collector having multiple options: credit card payment, debit card payment, MX card payment, UPA payment. There are several options are available. Is this the recommended approach to develop the classes, or this is not the recommended approach to develop the classes? Tell me, is it recommended approach or it is not the recommended approach to develop the classes? It is not at all recommended. Why it is not recommended? I want your answers. I want your answers. Guys, I'm not teaching the classes with employee address and all. I'm taking the real scenarios and I'm explaining. Initially, you may feel it is little difficult. Array, SAR terminology is completely different. We are unable to understand. This is what you have to learn. This is what it is using in the industry. All this terminology is important. Right. So now developing the classes like this is recommended or not recommended? Not recommended, because if you create the object for every class, then the classes will become tightly coupled, tightly coupled, right? So what they are telling is code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Now let me modify this functionality. Guys, bill collector class is available. Bill collector class available. It is having a pay bill method. Bill collector class is available. It is having a pay bill method. My pay bill method want to talk to one payment class, but here in our restaurant, we are having multiple payment options. In our restaurant, we are having multiple payment options. To which payment it has to talk? If I directly talk to credit card payment, then what is the problem? My bill collector will be tightly coupled with only credit card payment. So here I have the options like this. I have the options. Credit card payment is available. In the credit card payment, I have a pay method. Credit card payment available. Here I have a pay method. Here I have debit card payment available. In that also I have a pay method. Now similarly, we are having MX card. Similarly, we are having MX card. That is also do the use to pay the bill. MX card payment is available. MX card payment is available. Then here we are having one more option, UPI scanner for payment. UPI scanner for the payment. Okay, here, right. These are the algorithms that we have, or we can say these are the solutions we have for the customer. These are the options we have for the customers. These are the options we are giving for the customers to do the payment. These are the options we have for the customers to do the payment in our application. Now, which option should be executed? Which option should be executed to do the payment? Can I directly create the object for credit card payment in the bill collector class? And can I call this method? Can I create the object for the debit card? And can I call this method? Can I directly create the object for a debit card and call the method? Can I create the object for MX card? Can I call it? Can I create the object for UPI payment? Can I call this object? If I create the objects directly, then what is the problem? Tightly coupled. What is the problem? Tightly coupled. Now, what is the strategy design pattern telling? Now, first of all, can I go for interfaces? Can I go for inheritance here? Can I extend the properties from all the 4 classes in the bill collector? Is it possible? No, because Java does not support for multiple inheritance. So what it is telling? Favor composition over inheritance. Boss, If you want to talk from one class to another class, then favor composition over inheritance. Don't go for composition, you go for inheritance. Or you go for composition, favor composition over inheritance. Don't go for inheritance, go for composition. That is the first solution. So I should not go for composition, or I should not go for inheritance. Which one is not recommended here? Inheritance is not recommended or composition not recommended? Tell me guys. Inheritance is not recommended or composition is not recommended? Inheritance is not recommended because multiple inheritance does not support. If I go for composition, that also not recommended. Okay. Now what we need to do, instead of talking from one class to another class directly, go for interface concept. Here, I will be creating one interface called iPayment. I will be creating one interface with a name called iPayment. In the iPayment interface, I will be taking a method called pay method. In the iPayment interface, I'm taking one method called pay method. Then all these classes are going to implement my interface. All these classes are going to implement my interface. All these classes are going to implement my interface. Credit card payment is a implementation for iPayment. Debit card payment is a implementation for iPayment. MX card payment is a implementation for iPayment. UPI payment is a implementation for iPayment. These are implementations for iPayment. These are implementations for iPayment. Are you able to follow me? Are you able to follow me? Credit card payment, debit card payment, MX card payment, UPI payment, these all are the implementations for iPayment. These all are the implementations for iPayment. Now, here I am having a bill collector. Here I'm having a bill collector. Now, my bill collector should talk to interface, or my bill collector should talk to implementation class. Here in the bill collector, I will create a variable iPayment payment. I will create a variable called iPayment payment variable I'm going to create. Now see, bill collector is talking to interface. Interface is having implementation. Interface is having implementation. Are you guys able to follow my point? Are you guys able to follow my point? Now tell me, bill collector is talking to a interface or bill collector is talking to implementation classes? Bill collector is talking to interface or bill collector talking to implementation classes? Bill collector is talking to interface. So now tomorrow, if MX card implementation, if MX card is deleted, is there any impact on the bill collector? Bill collector is tightly coupled with the MX card. Bill collector is loosely coupled with the MX card. Bill collector is loosely coupled with the MX card. Tomorrow, I want to remove credit card also. Is there any impact on the bill collector? Is there any impact on the bill collector? There is no impact on the bill collector. Tomorrow, can I add? Tomorrow, can I add one more payment functionality? I want to support for some other payment functionality. Amazon Pay. Amazon Pay, I want to add it. Amazon payment, I want to add. So now if I add the Amazon payment for the functionality, is there any effect on the bill collector? My bill collector will be affected if I add the Amazon payment? Not affected because my bill collector is completely loosely coupled with the payment options. My bill collector class is completely loosely coupled with the payment options. You can add one extra payment process. You can delete the existing payment process. My code is open for extension. My code is closed for modification. You can add the new payment process. You can delete the existing payment process. There is no effect on the bill collector because my bill collector is not talking to the implementation classes. My bill collector is talking to an interface. By using this interface, I'm able to achieve loosely coupling. I am able to achieve loosely coupling. Are you guys able to understand how we are achieving the loosely coupling now? How we are achieving the loosely coupling? Are you guys able to understand now? Come on, please respond. So see, what is the difference between the previous diagram and this diagram? Why this approach is not recommended? Why this approach is not recommended? Come on, why this approach is not recommended? Directly talking to implementation class. Directly talking to implementation class. Directly talking to implementation class. So is this a recommended solution or it is not the recommended solution? It is not the recommended solution. Directly talking to implementation classes, it is not the recommended solution. Okay, now what is the next option? Talking to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Now here, talking to interfaces, talking to interface instead of implementation classes. Talking to interface instead of implementation classes. This is the recommended approach. Now, if I have this approach, now bill collector class having interface reference variable. What is available here? Bill collector having interface reference variable. Bill collector having interface reference variable. Okay. Interface is having multiple implementations. Interface having multiple implementations. We can choose the implementation in the runtime. We can choose any implementation in runtime. We can choose any implementation in the runtime. Note, interface reference variable can hold implementation class object. Interface reference variable can hold IMPL class object. Are you guys clear with these points? What is the advantage if I go with interface? What is the advantage if I go with interface? Are you guys clear with my points? Are you guys clear with my points now? I have a bill collector class. I have a bill collector class. My bill collector class is having a interface. My class is talking to a interface instead of talking to implementation class. My bill collector class is talking to a interface instead of talking to implementation class. Okay, bill collector is having a interface reference variable. Interface having multiple implementations. We can choose any implementation in runtime. Interface reference variable can hold implementation class object. Now, can I choose any one of this option in the runtime? When customer want to do the payment, I will ask the customer, hey, do you want to pay using credit card or debit card or MX card or UPI payment? Customer will say that UPI payment. Then immediately from my payment process, I will send a scanner to that machine. Now, did anybody purchase a medicine in the Apollo in recently? Did anybody purchase a medicine in the Apollo recently? Anybody purchased medicine in the Apollo medical? Did anybody purchase medicine in the Apollo? So now in the Apollo, when you go for purchasing the medicine, to do the payment, they will ask you, hey, how you want to do the payment? How you want to do the payment? So there will have a machine, right? If you say that I want to do the payment using credit card, then they will swipe your card. The payment will happen through credit card. For example, if you want to do the payment through UPI, they will not have any scanner. So directly what they will do is they will do the option UPI payment option in the machine. In the machine itself, a scanner will come. Generally, if you go for normal shops, a scanner card will be available there. You need to scan. For the bill amount, you need to enter. But in the Apollo, whatever is the bill amount, for that bill amount, scanner will be generated in the device itself. In which device they will swipe your card, right? In that device only scanner will come. That is for UPI payment. That means if they swipe the card, card payment will happen. If they generate a scanner, UPI payment will happen. That means depends upon the customer choice, the implementation is changing in the runtime. If you go and purchase a medicine in the Apollo, then you can understand how the UPI scanning is happening, how the card payment is happening. Depends upon the customer, the algorithm is going to change in the runtime. Depends upon the customer, the algorithm is going to change in the runtime. Now, so tell me, is this the recommended approach to develop my classes, or it is not the recommended approach to develop my classes? Is this the recommended approach to develop the classes, or it is not the recommended approach to develop the classes? It is highly recommended. Which pattern I am following now? Am I following any principles here? Am I following any principles here? Which principles we are following to develop the application? We are following strategy design pattern. These are the best practices that every developer should follow while developing the classes. If you develop your classes with the strategy design pattern, then your classes will be loosely coupled. Then IOC container will manage the dependencies among the classes. If you develop your classes like this, now tell me, am I extending the properties to call the pay method? Is there any inheritance concept here? Am I extending the properties? No. Am I creating the objects? Am I creating the objects? No. I have just taken interface variable. That interface is having several implementations. Then who will create the objects for these classes? Spring Core. If you develop your classes like this, then Spring Core module will create the objects and will manage the dependencies. That is what we discussed here. If we want Spring Core module to manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling, then we have to develop our classes by following some best practices. If we want Spring Core module to manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling, then we have to develop our classes by following some best practices. Spring Core module suggesting the developers to follow strategy design pattern to develop the classes so that Spring Core can easily manage the dependencies among the classes with loosely coupling. So Spring framework is telling, hey, if you want to use my Spring Core to manage the dependencies, you develop the classes by following strategy design pattern. Okay, strategy design pattern. It comes under behavioral design pattern. Strategy design pattern comes under behavioral design pattern. Design patterns are categorized into three types: creational, structural, behavioral. Now, strategy design pattern comes under behavioral design pattern. It enables our code to choose an algorithm at runtime. Now, here, whenever customer is doing a payment, the bill collector will use either credit card option or a debit card option or MX card option or UPI option at the runtime. If customer is having a credit card, then I will swipe it, then card payment will happen. If customer is having a UPI, I will generate a scanner, then they will do the scan in the device and they will do the payment. Okay. Now, when we have multiple algorithms, then we can use this pattern to choose one algorithm at runtime. It will make our classes loosely coupled. It will make our classes loosely coupled. Right. Now, so to develop the classes with the strategy design pattern, some rules we need to follow. What are the rules? First one is favor composition over inheritance. When you want to talk from one class to another class, blindly don't go for inheritance. Your classes will become tightly coupled if you go for inheritance. There are two problems with inheritance. One is classes will become tightly coupled. Second one, you can extend the properties from only one class. Classes will become tightly coupled and you can extend the properties from only one class. So favor composition over inheritance. That means instead of going for inheritance, favor composition. Even if you are using composition, don't create the objects directly. Don't talk to the classes. Bill collector should not talk to credit card, debit card, MX card directly. Don't code to implementation classes. Always code to interfaces. Always code to interfaces. That is the recommended. Code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. Then if you follow these two principles, automatically third one will come. Code should be open for extension and code should be closed for modification. So what is the meaning of this? I should be able to add the new payment process, or I should be able to delete the existing payment process. My application should not be affected. There should not be any impact on the bill collector. So favor composition over inheritance. Instead of going for inheritance, try to use the composition. Code to interfaces instead of implementation classes. What is the meaning of code to interfaces instead of implementation? My bill collector class is having a interface reference variable. That means my bill collector is talking to a interface. That interface is having several implementations. One of the implementation we will use in the runtime to execute our application. For one customer, they will go with the credit card. Then credit card implementation will be used for the customer. Another customer want to go with the debit card. Then debit card option will be used for that customer. Another customer will use MX card, this option. Another customer will use a scanner, this option. So depends upon the customer, the algorithm is going to change in the runtime. So now, if you go for this approach, then your classes will be loosely coupled. If you develop the classes like this, by following strategy design pattern, then IOC container will create the objects. IOC container will inject the objects. That means IOC container is going to manage dependencies among the classes in our application. There is no inheritance. There is no object creation. Still, we can access one class method in the another class. That means object creation, object injection is taken care by IOC container for our project. Are you guys comfortable? What is the strategy design pattern? What are the rules of the strategy design pattern? And what are the advantages of going for strategy design pattern? Guys, are you able to understand the advantages of going for strategy design pattern? Yeah, in the Telegram, I'm sharing this screenshot. You can see this. Bill collector having interface reference variable, interface having multiple implementations. We can choose any implementation in the runtime. Interface reference variable can hold implementation class object. Now we want to develop this application first. Then we will understand the power of the strategy design pattern. We should develop this application. Now, guys, is there anything related to Spring as of now in this project, in this concept? Is there anything related to Spring, or it is just normal, a design pattern we are learning? Is the Spring started actually? Am I using any Spring concept here? No, it's a normal design pattern. Design patterns are very important, guys, because the best practices, the better solutions we need to follow, best practices we need to follow while developing the projects, right? So you need to know the design patterns. This is a strategy design pattern that we need to follow to develop our classes with loosely coupling. If you develop the classes with loosely coupling, then only IOC container, then only IOC container, then only IOC container will take care of this. If you don't follow strategy design pattern, Got it? Very good. Guys, now I will be uploading this class notes to our portal. Guys, I'm updating the same file. So you guys can download that file once again. I'm editing the same file. I'm uploading the full notes in the single file. Click on save. So now go and download the existing file only so that you can access that. So if you go to 19 SBMS, so now one file is there, Spring module. So click on this download button, then you can see these notes. Control yes, then that file will be saved into your system. Okay. Once you click on the download, click on Control yes, then that file will be saved into your system. Today's notes also added to that file. Okay. Fine, guys. Good.